Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 841. Laughing proudly in the pugilistic world. Jun Moxie had noticed the moment he raised his hands to clap that the sleeves of his robe were a lot wider than that of regular people's. The moment he lifted his hands, the sleeves were almost touching the floor. Not long after, a pot of hot, fragrant tea was placed before Jun Moxie. The fine, fresh tea leaves were bubbling and turning in the water, adding a tinge of comfort in this quiet top floor of the building. I am Chen Chen. I believe you are someone from the Donghua family. Young Master Duanchang Chen Chen chuckled. But I wonder what your name is. Would you tell me? A name is just a mark. It's nothing that cannot be said. I'm called Donghua de Shu, and I'm the child of a collateral relative of the Donghua family. Jun Moxie picked up the tea and drank it in one gulp. He exclaimed, "It truly is great tea. It's very fragrant." Donghua de Shu? Brother Dongfang's name is really unusual. Chen Chen said ambiguously. My name may be odd, but it really has a story to it. Jun Moxie chuckled. Back then, before I was born, my mother suddenly dreamt of a glistening golden enormous book. So she named me Da Shu haha. I see. Going with this saying, Brother Donghua is definitely a prodigy. Chen Chen laughed. Of course not. Brother Chen, we are fated to meet. Since we get along so well, why are we addressing each other by our surnames like strangers? You can just call me by my name. Da Shu. Wouldn't that bring us closer? Jun Moxie said hospitably. The corner of Chen Chen's lips twitched. He thought. Da Shu? Big uncle too? Aren't you scoundrel just trying to blatantly take advantage of me? No matter how I address you, I'll just end up as your junior for no reason. This fellow is really detestable. Jun Moxie held onto the teacup and grinned at him. He experienced an immense urge to tease and toy with someone. The feeling of meeting this fellow was extremely similar to meeting Li Yuran. Both of them were well matched in the vibe of toying with their opponent. But although Li Yuran was dangerous back then, but he was quite reserved. But this young master Duanchang Chen Chen may appear peaceful and gentle in his mannerism and speech, but amidst all that, he vague revealed an extremely vicious aura. Facing him was like facing a venomous snake. Brother Donghua is a straightforward person. Chen Chen rubbed his fingers, looking down at it, ambiguously saying, I believe that Brother Donghua's current appearance is not your original look. Since Brother Donghua says we are fated, I wonder if we can meet with our real appearance? Wouldn't it be great if we are honest to each other? Jun Moxie chuckled. Brother Chen is truly perceptive. But from the way I see it, the current appearance of Brother Chen may also not be your original appearance. I wonder if we could meet with our real appearance. Wouldn't it be even better? Chen Chen jolted. I did not put on any disguise. But what does the other party mean in that I am not meeting him with my true colors? Is he intentionally acting dumb? Or, is there a double meaning? He hesitated, forcing a smile. Forgive me for being slow-witted. I wonder what Brother Donghua means by this. Jun Moxie sat comfortably in the chair. His finger tapped away at the table and he sighed. I am only in disguise for a couple of days. But this mask that Brother Chen wears has been kept on for 20 over years, aren't you tired? The look in Chen Chen's eyes changed, revealing genuine loneliness and helplessness. He let out a loud sigh, lowered his head and closed his eyes. He placed both his fingers on the strings of the guqin, gently plucking at it. Sounds came ringing out, conveying a sense of loss in its tune. A strand of black hair slipped from his head, covering half of his face, swaying in the wind. The sounds of hooves came from outside, drawing close and coming to a halt outside the building. The people outside parted way, and a row of people silently entered the building. It was the people from the Zhan family. The leader, a girl who wore a black veil, walking in front. That girl couldn't help but stop to listen upon hearing the melodious sound. But the two people on the top floor of the building continued as if they had not noticed anything. One continued to play, while the other listened as if they did not bother to pay attention to whatever was happening outside. This new tune that Chen Chen was playing was extremely short, coming to an end quickly. Chen Chen did not raise his head. Sighing, he said, "Brother Dongfang, upon your arrival today, I feel that I've met someone who can understand me. To be very honest, I was really unwilling and resistant to the idea of coming today to be part of the setup. But I felt from your words that the trip today was not made in vain." He slowly lifted his head and looked at Jun Moxie sincerely. "Brother Dongfang was not mistaken in your judgment. Indeed, I am indeed really tired. I'm really tired. But this mask of mine can no longer be removed, because if I take this mask off, I, Chen Chen, will become nothing overnight. So." Since Jun Moxie had entered, Chen Chen had been maintaining his polite and respectful demeanor of a young master of a family. But he had constantly been trying to sound out Jun Moxie, hiding his hostility. But these few sentences he had just said was full of emotions. Words from the bottom of his heart. Jun Moxie chuckled and replied, "Well said. It is true. No matter what the extent of hypocrisy is in the mask, if it is kept on for 20 years, hypocrisy would naturally become a habit. And this mask is so heavy, it was already difficult enough to put on, but even more difficult to take it off. All the responsibility, right and wrong, the bitterness, no one will be able to truly understand unless they are in that position. And at the same time the person who puts on this mask gets to enjoy about power and strength. He had to pay an equivalent price. How could he sacrifice that so easily?" Chen Chen took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. The expression on his face changed numerous times, and clearly his mind was in a state of turmoil. He closed his eyes, not speaking. Then he slowly opened them, and using a serious tone, he asked, "Brother Dongfang, could you play a tune for me?" In his tone, every single word was dripping with desire. In his eyes, an indescribable contradiction, as if there were two different types of thoughts in his heart, engaging in an intense struggle. Him asking Jun Moxie to play seemed to be trying to prove something to himself, trying to give himself a reason. Jun Moxie raised his brows and looked at him inquisitively. He asked, "Brother Chen, I don't seem to have mentioned that I know how to play. If said I do not know, then what would you do? It is hard to find a knowing ear. It'd be fortunate if you do know. Hiding our skills may not be suitable between us." Chen Chen gently smiled. With a swing of his long sleeves, the table silently changed directions, then floated over to Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie stretched his hand out, gently pressing on it. It came to a halt before him. Opposite him, Chen Chen looked at him with shining eyes. Sitting upright, the expression on his face full of seriousness and desire. Jun Moxie sighed mentally. Looks like this young Master Chen's passion for music is not faked. And although this person is somewhat shrewd, with a vicious personality, definitely not losing to Li Yuran, but he has a bit more emotions and temperament. He probably has a temperament personality. Fine. We are fated to have met today. I shall make an exception and play a tune today to commemorate our meeting today. Also, once you get into the pugilistic world, you can no longer act like yourself. Jun Moxie said with a double meaning, emotions surging in his heart. Entering the pugilistic world. Your body and heart were all in the pugilistic world. Then how could we not leave our own marks in the pugilistic world? That pugilistic dream that belongs to us youth. Laughing proudly in the pugilistic world. Jun Moxie reminisced bitterly. Sighing deeply. Those faraway memories. Those experiences in the past, all flashing across his eyes. Both hands on the guqin. He plucked at the strings testingly. The buzz of the sound of the instrument went from full gentle to full of impassion and murderous intent. There was no melody, but in these few simple strokes, the heavy atmosphere of the pugilistic world was conveyed. Once you get into the pugilistic world, you can no longer act like yourself. Chen Chen mumbled, a weird glint flashing across his eyes. Then it slowly faded away and was replaced by a long sigh. A lost expression spread across his face as he mumbled, pugilistic world. What is the pugilistic world? What counts as the pugilistic world? Pugilistic world is a path of no return. Jun Moxie's fingers ran across the strings of the guqin and the sound stopped. But an extremely imposing and overwhelming sense of desolation filled the entire building. In an instant, everyone in the building distinctly felt the heaviness of an imposing heavy rain. Chen Chen snapped back to his senses when young Master Jun began to play again. His eyes focused on Jun Moxie. Because just merely this sudden pause in Jun Moxie's playing had created atmosphere alone, was full of the presence of an exceptional musical talent. This had given Chen Chen a sudden glimmer of hope. Jun Moxie slowly closed his eyes. And in complete silence, all 10 fingers landed on the instrument strings heavily. A burst of impassioned tune. As if the waves were crashing on the shore, tidal waves rose, covering the entire sky, enshrouding the entire world in an intense melody. Iron blood, massacre, free and at ease, moving around unhindered. Indignant, all sorts of emotions were expressed in this single tune. This song belonged to the pugilistic world. It belonged to heroes. I travel alone over the world, moving about unhindered with just a sword. In my drunken stupor, I question the heavens, to cut off all feelings and dreams of a lover. In that intense melody, Jun Moxie laughed and started singing. The ocean laughs, tides overflow both shores. Floating and submerging along with the waves. Only the present day is taken into account. The sky laughs. In the successive tides of the world. Who lost and who emerged victorious? Only the sky knows. The land laughs. Distant is the mist and rain. Waves wash over the secular world. Who knows for how many ages? The light breeze laughs. Unexpectedly provoking loneliness. Heroic feelings returned. Clothed in the sunset's golden glow. Everyone laughs. No longer will there be loneliness. Heroic feelings remain in the sentimental laughter. That's right. A laughter in the sea. The song of the proud. Smiling Wanderer 3-1 Jun Moxie's favorite songs. This song was not for Chen Chen's sake. And not because he was feeling low. But for the sake of venting. Or perhaps, to show off. I just want to leave my mark in this world. This song, in this world, is mine alone. But I hope that everyone will be able to play it. Then I can hear it as and when I want. That way, I'll feel like I've returned home. Jun Moxie thought silently. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 842. Watch how I laugh proudly in the pugilistic world. This intense melody and singing instantly gushed into the soul of everyone around, especially those who were part of the pugilistic world. No matter friend or foe, no matter what their intentions were, no matter if they were good or evil. In this instance, through this song, smiling, proud wanderer, that made its appearance in this different world for the very first time, all of them felt an inexplicable and strange resonance in their souls. Pugilistic, dream. How many heroes? How many beauties? How many unpredictable situations? How many grievances? How much love, hate, passion and revenge. Many burly big men listened quietly. These iron-blooded men of the pugilistic world had a grin at the corner of their lips, face full of reminiscence, suddenly feeling that hope and longing, as if they had begun to have that pugilistic dream from their youth all over again. The corners of their eyes began to turn moist. Brandishing their swords, journeying the world, riding their horses with their knives, howling at the sky, laughing proudly in the pugilistic world. The song came to an end with a passionate vibrato. Like a peerless swordsman had suddenly removed his robes at the peak of his time. Following the end of the song, what followed was nothing but silence. And only complete silence. Everyone was silent, deep in thoughts. Two elders donned in white were sitting opposite each other in the corner of the building. The moment the guqin played its first note, both of them paid attention and listened carefully. They were completely enthralled. The music had already ceased, but the two of them continued to sit there blankly, that impassioned tune echoing in their ears. As if they wouldn't be sick of it even after 3 days. The two of them had a dazed look on their face. After a long while, they slowly, gently exhaled their breaths. One of the old men mumbled as if he were speaking in his dreams. Pugilistic, dream. The other old man opposite him gently smiled, his bony finger trembling. Suddenly, his tears began to fall, sliding down his cheek and onto his white beard, leaving a stain on his robes before landing on the floor. He mumbled, "Everyone laughs. No longer will there be loneliness. Heroic feelings remain in the sentimental laughter. No longer will there be loneliness, ha ha ha." But how much loneliness has been swallowed in this line of "no longer will there be loneliness"? Heroic feelings remain, but where have the comrades from the past gone? For that heartless and cold pugilistic world, how much did our generation sacrifice? And how much have we lost? What did we truly gain? He laughed mutedly at himself, and bitterly, then shook his head. Finally picking up the wine cup on the table, he closed his eyes and downed it in one gulp. As if he were drinking his entire life experience in the pugilistic world, the past that was hard to look back on. Upstairs, the masked girl Zhang Mengdai stood there in a daze. She had heard this passionate melody and agitated singing when she walked up the stairs. She involuntarily stopped in her tracks and listened to it closely. Until now. She slowly closed her eyes, an extremely moved expression on her face. After a long while, then she opened her eyes like she had woken up from a dream, exclaiming, "A great song that describes the pugilistic world." This song had encompassed all the flavors and emotions of the pugilistic world. Such a rich aftertaste. A haunting tune. The old man beside her was still reminiscing the aftertaste of the song. He lightly sighed and asked, "Young miss is not a member of the pugilistic world, but how is it that you are so touched?" A song that sings of the pugilistic dream. A song that empties the tears of the pugilistic world. The girl laughed and said in a daze, "I may not have ventured into the pugilistic world, but I can still feel the emotions of a hero. This song sings of freedom and ease, plays of boldness. But the heaviest emotion is thick grievances. Furthermore, isn't the Zhan family a pugilistic world in itself? The old man was surprised. Then he sighed and remained silent. Zhan Mengdai zoned out in her thoughts before she said, "Since I've heard of such melody that is so relatable, how could I miss the opportunity to meet this person? I must go up and see who is it exactly, who is capable of playing and performing such an open and bold yet desolate and lonely tune." Upstairs, there was no longer any trace of hypocritical peacefulness and gentleness on his face. His face shows how extremely moved he was. Although the song had already ended, he was still trying to commit it to his memory, thinking extremely hard, beating his hands to the tempo, as if this song was still playing, still echoing. After a while, he raised his head and asked anxiously, "Brother Dongfang, what is the name of this song?" Jun Moxie let out a long sigh, reminiscence evident in his eyes as he said, "This song shall be called the Song of Laughing Proudly in the Pugilistic World." The Song of Laughing Proudly in the Pugilistic World. The Song of Laughing Proudly in the Pugilistic World, truly. A great song of laughing proudly in the pugilistic world. Chen Chen agitatedly repeated it, his eyes gleaming. The ocean laughs. The sky laughs. The land laughs. The light breeze laughs. Everyone laughs, laughing in the pugilistic world. Ha ha ha. All the wanderers of the pugilistic world since ancient times till now. Which one of them had never wished to laugh proudly in the pugilistic world? But which hero in this world can laugh proudly in the pugilistic world? Jun Moxie said desolately. And who has the rights to really laugh proudly in the pugilistic world? Since ancient times now, not a single one. Chen Chen closed his eyes. After a while did he turn away and slowly said, "Your song today is sufficient for me to grant you kindness. Just leave. Leave Chrysanthemum City. Leave far, far away. Don't step into Chrysanthemum City forever. Because in this Chrysanthemum City, you will not be able to laugh proudly in the pugilistic world. Perhaps, the moment you fall in too deep in the trap, you guys will not have the chance to laugh proudly in the pugilistic world anymore." He suddenly turned around and looked at Jun Moxie with passion in his eyes. "Just with this single song of laughing proudly in the pugilistic world, I, Chen Chen, really am not willing to become enemies with you. If you guys wish to leave, I will do everything I can to send you away. You only have one chance. I hope you treasure it. Brother Dongfang, I, Chen Chen, have been a hypocrite my whole life. But today, I am really sincere for the first time. I hope you can make your decision soon." Jun Moxie sighed lightly, then chuckled and shook his head. Looking at him with pity in his eyes, he said helplessly, "I already said earlier, once you get into the pugilistic world, you can no longer act like yourself. Chen Chen, for your words earlier, I shall also give you an opportunity. If you leave Chrysanthemum City right now, and never return to this place, then you will have the chance to laugh proudly in the pugilistic world. In this world, there are indeed really not many adorable people, and I really do not wish to have to kill you, who are still considerably adorable." Chen Chen laughed bitterly. There is indeed too much helplessness in this world. In the pugilistic world or in the court, even within the family clan, couldn't it just be where the pugilistic world lies? I have already long resigned to my fate. I cannot even make the decision for my own marriage. How can I be so greedy and ambitious to talk about laughing in the pugilistic world? Talking crazily like a fool? Ha ha ha." At the end of the sentence, he had suddenly broke out in laughter full of desolation, to the point of tears. He shook his head and said, I seem to have a boundless future. But ultimately deep inside, I am a tool of the family. A mere tool. Brother Dongfang. Chen Chen looked at him seriously. The hardest thing to find in the world is a soulmate. If you really die, then I'll be even more lonely. Soulmate? You see me as your soulmate. Someone who understands you. But it's a pity I am not. Jun Moxie calmly said. And you are not my soulmate. Because what I want, what I do, is to laugh proudly in the pugilistic world. Chen Chen was stumped after hearing his words. At this moment, a crisp voice rang out. May I ask, who was it who performed that song earlier? Both of them turned in the direction of the voice, only to see a girl who wore a black veil covering her face, standing prim and properly at the entrance of the stairs. A pair of cold eyes were scanning the two faces. At this moment, Jun Moxie's sharp senses detected that the crowd outside had slowly dissipated, and that dozen spirit senses ambushing earlier were all gathering towards here. Chen Chen had failed his mission, because he had initially come to sound Jun Moxie out. But suddenly, Jun Moxie and him had began to sympathize with each other. In the instant his attitude changed. His mission was considered a failure. So those in the dark immediately changed their strategy. Looks like they intend to catch me alive. Jun Moxie gave a mocking look and said, if my guess is correct, this young lady here should be the treasured daughter of the Zhan family. Miss Zhan Meng Dai, right? Chen Chen opposite him revealed a look of extreme surprise. He had never imagined that this fiancée of his had appeared right here, right now. But the expression on his face immediately turned sad, as if he had thought of something. Zhan Meng Dai let out a look of surprise, looking at the ugly man before her as she asked, who are you? Although Jun Moxie did not explicitly say it, but him opening his mouth before Chen Chen was enough to show who the owner of the song was. And this was very different from the image Zhan Meng Dai had in her mind. In her mind, the person who had performed this song should be a young man who was bold and free. A wanderer who was heroic. A lone hero with just his sword, who looked upon this world with pride. It definitely shouldn't be this wretched-looking youth before her. Me? I'm someone from the Dongfang family. Jun Moxie cackled weirdly and suddenly stood up. Great tea. Great music. I believe the arrangements are more or less ready. Then it's time for me to take my leave. Chen Chen stood up anxiously. Let me escort you out. The song of laughing proudly in the pugilistic world absolutely should not cease to exist. Right now, the sounds of clothes flapping away in the air above rang out. A dozen experts were already here. Chen Chen was even more anxious. He was even genuinely worried for Jun Moxie right now. Because he absolutely did not hope to see this rare person who could understand him to die like this. If this Dongfang de Shu fell into the hands of the Qin family, Chen Chen was more clear than anyone else of what would happen to him. Especially when the person making the decisions was no longer someone from the Qin family. The moment he was caught, it would definitely be out of his control. So this young master Duanchang, who was always cold-blooded, had expressed his genuine friendship, which was extremely rare. If you really take me as your soulmate, then retire from the pugilistic world as early as possible. Jun Moxie laughed loudly. Tongguan Ho. Truly a great place. Ha! Pouring wine to console oneself. Friendship is unpredictable like waves. One has to be wary even with an old friend. Those who excelled in life first laugh at me, dust my hat. The wild grass is green because of the nourishment from drizzles. The flowers wishes to bloom but are met with spring breeze and freezing cold. The fleeting matters of the world are not worth mentioning. And it is better to take good care and live in seclusion. At this moment, he was still looking extremely wretched with slanted eyes and crooked brows. But his enthusiasm and disdainful attitude had greatly displayed the freedom and ease of being in the pugilistic world. At this moment, Chen Chen and Zhan Mengdai exchanged looks. Jun Moxie had looked like he had just transformed into an outstanding, confident youth who didn't give a dang even when faced with strong enemies and power. The graceful bearing in this moment had left the two who had always been prideful and arrogant completely enchanted and stunned. Jun Moxie let out a loud whistle and flew up, exiting out of the window gently. With a paw he had disappeared out of their sight. His chuckle came echoing from the downstairs, and in an indifferent tone, he said, "Since that's the case, please watch how I laugh proudly in the pugilistic world today." Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 843. The Battle of Guan Hall. Since you have already come, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Please stay for a while. A voice said. Young Master Chen, we still need you to give an explanation to the master. Chen Chen scoffed coldly. Be careful. This line was directed at Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie had just flown up when two figures came charging at him. Be careful? I think this big Uncle Me is not the one who needs to be careful. Jun Moxie laughed loudly, pushing his palms out. Pa! Pa! Two human figures were blown away into the sky, spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood in the air. Jun Moxie had already landed on the rooftop. The sudden last-minute change in sides by Chen Chen, who had overseen the setup, caught everyone from the Chen family and the Three Holy Lands by surprise. Even Jun Moxie was caught unprepared. With Chen Chen's unexpected change in sides, the opponent would definitely be in a state of confusion. But young Master Jun's original plans also went down the drain. As the saying goes, scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Since Chen Chen had treated him genuinely, then he could not make things difficult for him. If that was the case, the original plan of slowly drawing all the people from the Three Holy Lands through Chen Chen, then settling them one by one after, could not be used anymore. But Jun Moxie did not feel upset or disappointed. Conversely, he felt happy. The matter today might have been beyond his expectations, but it had let young Master Jun feel that this trip was not made in vain. Evil Monarch Moxie, regardless of his previous life or this life, he had countless enemies, but he truly had too little friends. Combining the two worlds, there were less than 35 of them. Someone who could relate and empathize like the person he met today was even rarer. That's right. Even if they were enemies, they could still sympathize with each other. It was not entirely impossible for there to be a likable person in the enemy's camp. Chen Chen from today was one. So was the only survivor of the 6 saints, Leng Tong. Although young Master Jun would not change in position and acts for anyone, but Chen Chen still gave Jun Moxie a weird feeling, a type of feeling of don't want to kill him. So Jun Moxie simply turned everything upside down and made a big mess in the open. As long as the news went out, the experts from the Three Holy Lands would still gather here. Then there was not too big of a difference from the original plan. It had only increased the stress Jun Moxie had to face while waiting for the people, losing an insignificant advantage. So Jun Moxie boldly played that song of laughing proudly in the pugilistic world. Not only was it to fulfill Chen Chen's wish, but to also provoke this entire matter, and let the emotions that accumulated in his heart get vented out. Since ancient times till now, how many people could truly laugh proudly in the pugilistic world? Me. I want to laugh proudly in the pugilistic world. Chrysanthemum City looks like it'll have to enter bloodshed in advance. This young master originally wanted to play for a while longer, but it looks like I can't play anymore. Jun Moxie had just landed on the rooftop of the building, when 4 people had already come flying at him, their palms all aiming for his vital points. These people were clearly trying to capture him alive. Although their strokes were clean, they did not use their weapons, so more or less they were being merciful. As the attacks from all 4 directions came caging towards him, young Master Jun started floating weirdly and halting midair. In that instant, both his hands and legs were tossed out simultaneously. Yes, tossed out. As if they all had a conscience of their own, and could attack at free will, ignoring distance, space and position. The right fist shattered the right palm from that Sky Xian expert, then landed heavily on his chest. That man wore a look of disbelief and barely had the time to shout in pain when his body broke apart in pieces and flew out. Flew out. Under the tyrannical strength of Jun Moxie's fist, the 4 limbs and head of that man had detached from his body at the same time. Fresh blood rained heavily down from the sky. The next moment after his fist had shattered the body, his 2 legs had already landed on the chests of 2 enemies. With a series of clear cracking sound of bones breaking, the 2 figures fell back while spitting blood. Jun Moxie borrowed strength from the kick and somersaulted in the air. He suddenly changed from a state of lying down midair to rising and soaring upwards. Like a rocket, shooting into the sky. A black figure rose in the sky rapidly with a whoosh. The sides of the robes were even showing signs of smoke. 2 white figures came flying on left and right side at lightning speed, right under both his feet. Their palms came into contact with each other to change their direction, borrowing strength from each other to give chase into the sky. These 2 white figures were the 2 elders donned in white whose strength was the most unfathomable. They already did their best to overestimate the strength of this donghua de Xue, and with the current lineup, it was more than enough even if they were dealing with donghua Wenqing. But they did not expect that when a dozen experts joined forces to attack, they were completely overwhelmed by the opponent's immense strength within seconds. They had originally intended to just watch from the sidelines and provide support. But that was completely impossible now. Looking at the current situation, if the 2 of them didn't take action, it would be really embarrassing if this enemy really escaped. It was a pity that even if they personally took action, they may not be able to bring the enemy under control. Although the 2 were charging towards him at high speed, they were still easily dodged by donghua de Xue. This donghua de Xue was really sharp. Both elders scoffed coldly at the same time. They rose in the air again to continue their pursuit. Jun Moxie continued to speed up in rising upwards. But in that moment, the 2 elders donned in white had risen and reached their highest speed. Young Master Jun's lips turned into a peculiar smirk. His body that was flying at high speed suddenly came to a complete halt. Just hanging in the air. Completely still. This change was beyond their expectations. And it disobeyed the logics of martial arts. It was almost impossible to stop at their highest speed, even if the person himself wished to. These 2 opposing states of motion to go from motionless to fast was not difficult for an agile expert. But to go from fast to motionless, other than having extremely good agility, their cultivation must reach a level where they had excellent control to do as the wish. Only then was it possible to do such a feat. Amongst all of Xian continent, it was not entirely impossible for people to do this. But usually, only an extremely agile expert of saint level would be capable of doing this. Jun Moxie had suddenly halted at a time like this. These two elders may be strong, but they were still far from a saint's level. It was impossible for them to halt when they were giving their all to chase. They could only watch Jun Moxie's figure come closer and closer, until they both flew beside Jun Moxie and was still continuing to go past him. But Jun Moxie's attack had been rudely delivered. Jun Moxie had a cruel smile as his left hand pressed on the top of the head of the elder on his left. This elder was also quite good. Even when in face of such a terrible situation, he could still compose himself and attack Jun Moxie's abdomen with a loud holler. Jun Moxie's hand was already overhead, so it was too late for this elder to dodge this deadly blow. He could only use distraction. As long as Jun Moxie was concerned about these two blows to his abdomen, then he could avoid that blow above his head. Although he may not be able to kill the other part, and he might die from the blow to his head, but as long as this Dongfang de Shu received this blow, it would definitely be significant damage. In a situation where he was outnumbered and injured, he would definitely not be able to remain alive for long. If we both don't win, then we both shall lose. He was sure that Jun Moxie would not be willing to take the gamble with his own life. But reality was beyond his expectations. Just like how he did not imagine that Dongfang de Shu had the capabilities to suddenly ascend upwards. Just as the elder delivered his blow, Jun Moxie suddenly floated upwards, like a piece of paper with negligible weight, drifting along in the wind. And as young Master Jun had floated upwards, that blow was still going down. The white-clothed elder was terrified. He was still ascending, and because of that desperate attempt from before, he was flying even more quickly. It was as if he went to meet the blow of his own accord. He quickly turned his head to the side to avoid it. He felt Jun Moxie's palm brushing against his ear and hammering down heavily on his right shoulder. Kacha! The sound of his shoulder bone breaking was heard. The elder stared in disbelief. He fell down at an even faster speed than he was ascending at. Right now, he had even forgotten the tremendous pain on his body. He was only filled with disbelief. The moment the palm came down, he sensitively felt it. The other party's Xian's strength was like a knife cutting through tofu, slicing through the protective layer of Xian Qi he kept around his body easily with no resistance and landing heavily on his own shoulder. Although he was caught by surprise, but he was still a solid second-level venerable. The protective Xian Qi of a venerable was actually destroyed in a single hit by this person before him. During the process of his descent, he only had enough time to shout in shock. Venerable? Third level? Then, he landed with a loud boom, smashing through the rooftop of the Tongguan Hall and falling down like a boulder. But his last sentence had scared the living daylights out of his companion. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 844. This is just the beginning. At the same time Jun Moxie had attacked him, his other hand was chopping down towards the other person. And that other elder was also rapidly ascending and was similarly caught unprepared. In a flash, he quickly shouted, "World CA." Under these circumstances, indeed only World Cage could turn the situation around in his favor. But he had barely finished his words, when all the surrounding energies started to gather rapidly. He heard the three words his companion had uttered. Venerable? Third level? These three simple words gave him a crushing sense of defeat. He forcefully swallowed the world cage he was about to use back in. The world cage restrained the enemy by borrowing the power of heaven and earth, leaving them at the user's mercy. It was a very tyrannical, practical and powerful skill. But there was a prerequisite to the powerful effects of this skill. And that was, it could only be used on opponents weaker than the user himself. If this skill was used on an opponent that was higher in his cultivation, then not only would the world cage be completely ineffective, and it would inflict Devil's Bite on the user at an even more ferocious intensity. And he had absolutely no strength to put up any resistance using the world cage at a timing like this. The consequences of the Devil's Bite was extremely terrible. In some cases, their spirit might be shattered on the spot, consigned to eternal damnation. Even if the enemy was not a saint-level expert, he'd be a third-level venerable at the very least. Otherwise, his companion would not be this shocked and wouldn't be defeated this quickly. With such a powerful enemy before him, how could this other old man donned in white not be frightened? But the world cage had been activated halfway before it was suddenly stopped. So the strength of the Devil's Bite wasn't small. So this elder on the right was in a more terrible state than the other. Jun Moxie's palm had yet to hit him when his entire body had jerked strongly and fresh blood came dripping out from the corner of his mouth. He did not have the time to activate protective Xian Qi and was struck by Jun Moxie. He felt his insides burning, the world spinning as he went falling down. Before his body landed on the floor, a series of loud cracking noises of his bones breaking could be heard. He landed on the ground with a boom, completely unconscious, his injuries extremely severe. The two venerable level experts supporting the Chen family had both been defeated. And they had been defeated so badly it was hard to tell if they could still make a comeback. Jun Moxie's body was still floating mid-air, not landing on the ground. He laughed loudly in the air. You actually think that you can stop the Dongfang family's assassination mission with this sort of abilities? Ha ha ha. Chen Qingtian. Is there any meaning? Using mere schemes and plots when facing my tyrannical strength. Then Jun Moxie let out a long, loud laughter that shook the heavens. His figure flashed under the sunlight and vanished, leaving a state of mess on the ground. From start to end, Jun Moxie had not thought of killing anyone, especially the two second-level venerables from the three holy lands, because he still needed to leave someone to pass the message. During this period of time, he had wanted to seek revenge like crazy. But there was also a feeling of using a hammer to hit cotton. In the eyes of the world, venerable level experts were already a supreme, legendary existence. But in Jun Moxie's hands, it felt like an unfair contest. It was meaningless. Even if he killed them, he couldn't increase the joy of getting his revenge. Now that I've already shown my moves, it has to attract some big shots over. Let all the experts from the three holy lands gather this way. Let me have my joy in killing. Thoroughly beating, injuring and killing all these bunch of scums. Another thing was Solitary Falcon and Feng Wan Yun, who were leading the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer in the operation to wreak havoc in the continent. If they attracted the attention of the three holy lands with their current strength, it was still too much for them to bear. So Jun Moxie intended to use himself as a bait to attract the attention of the three holy lands. That way, everything would proceed more smoothly for everyone. Jun Moxie had been feeling repressed. He had always been plotting his revenge, always being kept busy, but he knew that he could not get past his heart. He did not even dare to go back inside the Hongjun Pagoda. Every time he entered, he felt a pain, as if his heart was being cut open. Xue Yan's injury was because of him. She had reverted back to her original form and even almost lost her life. And now, there was one more Snake King Green Hunter. Even with the treatment of the purple spiritual qi in the Hongjun Pagoda, it could only sustain Snake King's life. But it could not make her recover. In other words, for a long period of time, Snake King would remain in this false state of death. And there was no clear way to make her wake up, or perhaps, in this entire life, she could only continue to live on like this, without any consciousness. In modern medical terms, she was a vegetable. May Xue Yan's injuries was due to a lack of better choice. But the Snake King's injuries this time was from trying to save himself. Because he was careless. I shouldn't have stepped out back then. But I blatantly revealed myself. Although there was a reason why I had to show up. But no matter what reason it was, it doesn't change the fact that Snake King had gotten injured because of me. Precisely because I appeared. I triggered Jun Moxie's killing intent. And because I was careless, Snake King had to sacrifice herself to save me. Leading to a tragic situation like this. If I do not get revenge for this, how could I face the two beauties, one who had yet to regain her human form, the other in a vegetative state in the Hongjun Pagoda? If I do not get revenge for this, not only have I let them down, I have also let myself down. Only with massacre. Only through a bloody revenge on the three holy lands and misty illusory manner, could make my heart calm down by just that little bit. I don't care what were you guys doing it for. What sort of missions you have. Since you did something wrong, you must pay the price for it. Guan Hall today is just the beginning. Just a start, the three holy lands. Come. I am waiting. The extremely powerful Dongfang de Shu had already vanished. But hundreds of people were still in a state of shock. What sort of strength was that? A joint force of a dozen of spirit Xian and two venerable defeated by the enemy easily. And even killing a number of them. And severely injuring two venerables. And leaving without a single scratch. Everyone was trembling in their heart. A super expert like this, is he really our enemy? We are going to meet such a terrifying opponent? Chen Chen still sat in his original position. In a daze. Not moving at. The moment Jun Moxie had exited. He was harping on one line. One has to be wary even with an old friend. Those who excelled in life first, laugh at me, dust my hat. After a while, he laughed mockingly at himself and sighed. Guan Hall was part of the Chen family's properties. The name came from when people have joyous affairs. They dust their hats and celebrate for each other. But in this poem from Jun Moxie, it had changed into a different meaning. One has to be wary even with an old friend. Those who excelled in life first, laugh at me, dust my hat. In this way, hadn't the name of Guan Hall turned into a big joke? Truly a prodigy. Chen Chen was full of praise in his mind. This Dongfang de Shu, let's not even doubt how real the name is. Just this impromptu poetic talent alone is really amazing. But what he did not know was that this poem of Jun Moxie was blatantly plagiarized. Zhan Mengdai stood there quietly, also deep in her thoughts. Her veil covered her face, so it was hard to tell her expression. But the look in her eyes was wavering, and clearly her mind was also not tranquil. At this moment, Jun Moxie was already exchanging blows above the rooftop. These two people on the top level only exchanged looks, and did not have any time to take any actions when the battle ended after loud laughter and a couple cries of pain. Jun Moxie's figure disappeared amidst the laughter and two big holes appeared through the roof. Two white-clothed elder landed heavily before them, one looking in a bad state while the other was unconscious. Chen Chen turned pale with fright. Weren't these two people the experts from the three holy lands that the family was relying greatly on? How could they be defeated so easily? How was that possible? Chen Chen and Zhan Mengdai exchanged looks, and all they saw was shock in each other's eyes. Jun Moxie's song earlier had left them in shock and respect. Then his poem had left them lingering in the aftertaste, deep in their thoughts. But right now, his strength had left both of them completely shocked. From sympathy, to admiration to almost worship. They had undergone 3 changes in attitude within a short period of time. Yes, it was worship. Because Jun Moxie was younger than them, they could tell even with his disguise. But his achievements, in all aspects, was beyond the two of them. They couldn't catch up even if they tried. Chen Chen suddenly understood the deep meaning behind Jun Moxie's words earlier. If you really take me as your soulmate, then retire from the pugilistic world as early as possible. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. It really was the family's bad luck to meet someone like this and make an enemy of him. Making an enemy out of someone this powerful. The Chen family probably would not last for long, and might as well quickly retire from the pugilistic world. Zhan Mengdai revealed a look of shock in her eyes and asked, "Who is this person?" Chen Chen sighed and said, "Someone from the Dongfang family." He turned around and looked at Zhan Mengdai, a cynical look in his eyes. "This person is the target of the Zhanchen family alliance. And at the same time, one of the prerequisites of our marriage." Zhan Mengdai said angrily. "Chen Chen, what do you mean?" "There is no meaning." Chen Chen said desolately. "I'll do my best to convince my father to back out from this battle when I return. The Dongfang family has someone like this. We are no match for them even with the 3 holy lands supporting us. This matter was my father's scheme to bring the family greater. But from the way I see it, this time, perhaps before the family becomes even more influential, I'll witness its destruction first. This is a matter of the family. I do not care for it. Chen Chen. I am just a woman." Zhan Mengdai said after remaining silent for a while. "I came here because I heard of something. The family seniors refused to let me come. But I must get the truth today. Chen Chen. This matter concerns you. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you." Chapter 845. Fear. Chen Chen was astounded. "What matter is it? Feel free to speak your mind, young lady. I had heard that you and a maid of the family, your personal maid, were mutually in love. You could give up everything for her sake and, for her, you had even sworn to not look at any other women. This matter, is it true?" Zhan Mengdai said in a low voice. "Please don't worry. I really have no other intentions. I just want to verify the truth." "Haha, even if it is true, so what?" Chen Chen began to laugh desolately. "Right now, she is locked up. And the family will absolutely not allow this to happen. The entire family clan wants only the marriage between the both of us. That is all. Because our marriage will allow the Chen family to become stronger. And she can't. Entrusting the hopes and fate of the entire family on the painful union of a man and a woman, 2 people crying, while everyone else is laughing. Isn't it hilarious?" "Indeed, it is hilarious. But, since they want us to cry, then why are we still allowing them to laugh? Don't tell me that you are willing to yield just like this." Zhan Mengdai looked at him and said, "I can see that you sincerely do not wish to accept this sort of arrangement, and I am the same." Chen Chen's eyes brightened. "What do you mean?" "Just like that person earlier had said, why don't you retire from the pugilistic world?" Zhan Mengdai revealed a hint of sorrow in her eyes. "You have your beloved woman. And I, Zhan Mengdai, also have the man that I love. Since both of us do not have feelings for each other, why should we force ourselves?" Retire from the pugilistic world. Chen Chen mumbled repeatedly to himself. After a while, the look in his eyes turned resolute, as if he had decided to let go of something. He seemed to be more relaxed. After this matter, the Chen family will have no other choice but to retire, even if they do not wish to. Miss Zhan's words had enlightened me. Thank you for your reminder. He laughed loudly, regaining the confidence and freedom he had in the past. As expected, Miss Zhan is clever and pure-hearted. This has made me even more curious. A man who is capable of making a fairy-like lady like yourself keep him on his mind, how would he look like? I wonder if I can have the honor of knowing of the name of the lucky guy. Zhan Mengdai let out a long, deep sigh, her expression changing to that of sadness and sorrow. His position is no better than your maid. He is just someone from a small family, and is an illegitimate child with no position. We met in an accident. My family will also not allow this. So, this matter is also one of the reasons why we have this marriage arrangement. Chen Chen revealed a helpless expression, shaking his head as he laughed bitterly. Turns out, Miss and I share the same fate, but what is the name of your beloved? Which family does he belong to? Chen Chen seemed gentle in his tone and expression, but his heart wasn't feeling as sincere. But nominally, Zhan Mengdai was still his fiancé. He would be lying to himself if he said he completely didn't mind that his fiancée has someone else on her heart. Even if it was the same case for himself. This is just human nature at work. The prideful Chen Chen was really interested to know who exactly was this person who could overpower him. He has already been missing for a long time. I don't even know if he is dead or alive. A dreary look appeared in Zhan Mengdai's beautiful eyes, as she looked into the distance, longing on her face as she spoke as if she were in a dream. The Bailey family. Bailey Luo Yun. That night, Chen Chen did his best to convince his father to give up on the operation this time. But Chen Qingtian obstinately persisted in going on with it, reprimanding Chen Chen and keeping him grounded at home. That night, the Zhan family and Chen family sent a pigeon to call for help. The contents were about the same. The Dongfang family has a mysterious expert aiding them, and the person's strength is impossible to predict. Elder Feng and the rest were all defeated in one strike. We are too weak to fight the enemy and hope that aid will come quickly. With a powerful and strong backing like the three holy lands who stood at the peak of Xian for 10,000s of years, which power in the world was truly capable of putting up a fight? How could the Dongfang family be an exception? In the same night, after Jun Moxie returned to the inn, he instantaneously released his extremely powerful spirit sense, attacking the surrounding area. All the spies who were watching them were all ruthlessly dealt with by Jun Moxie. On the next day, the Chen family found out that the 20 people from the Dongfang family who had come on this trip had all suddenly vanished. As if they had never existed in the first place. As if they had already transformed into mist and dissipated into the surroundings. But everyone from the Chen family knew that the people from the Dongfang family were definitely still around. Just that they had gone from being out in the open to hiding in the dark. The current them was like a group of ghosts, completely blending into Chrysanthemum City, hiding in the dark, possibly dealing a fatal blow at any moment. The atmosphere of Chrysanthemum City also became strangely suffocating along with the disappearance of the Dongfang family members. As if you'd be caught by the neck by that invisible assassin if you took a deep breath. A situation like this was really extremely unusual. Arriving with great fanfare when the Chen family didn't even bother to view them as a threat. Then after making the Chen family wary of them by revealing their strength, they suddenly vanished. This sort of method was really rare to see. Even if Dongfang Wenqing and the rest had left, The Chen family would never be able to sleep in peace after this. As long as Jun Moxie, Dongfang Wenqing, and the rest did not die for even one day, the Chen family would continue to panic and see everyone as an enemy. An assassin who could defeat two great venerables in one strike, hiding himself in the dark waiting for the opportunity to strike. This terrifying fact sent shivers down Chen Qingtian's spine whenever he thought of it. The entire Chen family had given up on trying to fall asleep with the arrival of this nightmare. The uproar created by that Dongfang de Shu was truly too terrifying. After all. And his strength too. That was an existence that no super family was capable of fighting against. The entire Chen family, as long as they had some sort of position of power in the family, did not dare to sleep. Especially the target of this mission, the master of Chen family, Chen Qingtian. The two great venerables he had been so reliant on were defeated in one strike. He could fall into that devil's clutch that was impossible to fight against. Could he not be afraid? But for the next 7 days, there was still nothing. This caused even greater panic. The entire Chen family was on the verge of breaking down. Since the Dongfang family had someone that powerful, why can't they just kill the target and wrap things up? Is there a need to keep us hanging like this? Chrysanthemum City may have seemed to be peaceful, but shocking news was still coming in continuously from other places. Chen family had originally gotten news from the Three Holy Lands that it seemed like the Dongfang family had already dispatched their strongest assassins. This was definitely good news to the Three Holy Lands and the Qinzhan families, fitting perfectly into their plans. But in 7 days, unexpected news had been coming in continuously. All the targets had been successfully assassinated by the assassins dispatched by the Dongfang family, regardless of whether they had experts protecting them. Any random one of these targets was a famous big shot. With the dispatching of all the assassins of the Dongfang family, they had all become stepping stones for the reputation of the Dongfang family. If the targets without protection were assassinated, it would be no surprise. But even those who were thoroughly protected by experts from the Three Holy Lands did not manage to escape death. Most of the experts from the Three Holy Lands had either died or suffered injuries. And the scariest thing was that the assassins from Dongfang family all managed to retreat with no casualties. Killing their own bait, crippling their own strength, but still having to make payment for it. The grievance of this matter was too much. Within over 10 days, the reputation of the Dongfang family of assassins shocked the world. They lived in seclusion for 10 years. But the moment they came back, it was as if they were at the peak that no one in the world could oppose. Only bloodshed remained in the places the Dongfang family had been to. According to rumors, the Dongfang family assassins were extremely clean in their deeds this time. Most targets had already lost their heads before they had even seen the enemy. They were really to the point of killing in one strike and retreating far away, appearing unpredictably, invisible and untraceable. The moment their swords left their hands, it would not return empty-handed. At the same time, a shocking slogan officially rang out in the pugilistic world, unfailing as the sun that rises from the east. I am undefeatable. Those 11 words that everyone used to turn their noses at had now become a resounding slogan that wanderers of the pugilistic world discussed about enthusiastically. Unfailing as the sun that rises from the east. I am undefeatable. This sort of tyrannical grandeur truly had completely been unheard of. But the strength of the Dongfang family today was truly worthy of these 11 words. Because since the Dongfang family came back into the pugilistic world, they had really never suffered defeat or missed their targets. This shocking news had caused everyone in the Chen family back in Chrysanthemum City to be in even greater panic. The Zhan family, which was a city away, was also in similar situation. The two families had plotted against the Dongfang family, But today, they ended up getting caught with no room to advance or retreat. And death could befall them any moment. The Chen family was in danger of crumbling any moment. But how could the Zhan family, who was also part of the conspiracy, be spared? This battle fire that had already been lit would burn onto the Zhan family sooner or later. There was absolutely no doubt about this. The news of victories in different places had further confirmed that Dongfang Wenqing had personally arrived in Chrysanthemum City full of confidence. It was known that although Dongfang Wenqing was the current head of the Dongfang family, he was still second below old Madame Dongfang in the Dongfang family. Since he had personally come to Chrysanthemum City this time, it must be because he had absolute confidence. Which was why he was doing things with such great fanfare. And shocking news coming in from other places had further confirmed the strength of the Dongfang family. Otherwise, why would the Dongfang family allow such an important person like Dongfang Wenqing to put himself in danger and do a mission that he did not have complete confidence in? This series of news had completely overturned the original plans of the Chen family, Zhan family, and the Three Holy Lands. Dongfang Wenqing personally carrying out the operation was not because they were out of options and were staking it all in one shot, but rather, to take control of the whole situation. The more Dongfang Wenqing did not take any action, the more it proved that he was extremely confident. That also means that he had absolute faith in killing Chen Qingtian and leaving. That battle at Tongguan Hall that day further confirmed this assumption. Two venerables had been defeated in one strike. What more Chen Qingtian, who only had the strength of a 4th-level spirit Xian. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 846. Bloody Rain and Foul Wind. Nonetheless, shocking news continued to come in, making the situation worse. It was all bad news. It seemed like the entire continent had fallen into a state of chaos. Since they had been oppressed, the Xikong family and Duanmu family had been faced with a dire situation in their businesses, their main source of livelihood, which was falling apart. A portion of it was monopolized by betrayers from their family, while the others were taken over by their competitors or occupied by unknown powers. Essentially, these two families did not even have a single shop or a single business left. They had completely fallen into a predicament, almost at the end of the line. Or perhaps because they were at the end of the line, that was why the light at the end of the tunnel was more shocking. Within a short duration of a few days, the entire situation had instantly been reversed. Each and every business that had belonged to the two families, those that were forcefully seized from them, had all suffered a destructive attack from a mysterious force. All those who dared to snatch the businesses of these two families had their heads falling on the grounds. Not a single one escaped. There was absolutely no room for mercy. Before the incident, the main people of Xikong and Duanmu families had solid alibis that they had absolutely nothing to do with this shocking accident. Even if the rest of the people from the families wished to do it, they weren't capable of it. Although these two families were the prime suspects, but it had ended up as an unresolved case. Some people could even tell with one look that with the remaining meek strength of the two families currently, even if they had the intentions, they definitely did not have the capabilities. So the real culprit was really worth thinking over. Amongst all those who were destroyed, all their corpses were hung up and exposed to the public, the betrayers of the two families being left in the most miserable states. Although there was no reason provided, a scene of bloody carnage like this was essentially silently made clear to everyone else. And all the businesses who had called off a partnership with these two big families were all exterminated. In 10 short days, this sort of unresolved case continuously appeared all over the continent. Every single place was brimming with bloody rain and foul wind. Every single case was a debt of blood, an appalling scene of devastation. The ruthlessness and decisiveness of the culprit in the incident this time was unheard of. They only killed. They never mentioned any reason or their aim. Large amounts of fortune, gold, silver, and valuables that piled up like a mountain were all left abandoned. As if to make clear a philosophy, I like to kill people, so I'll kill people. I do whatever I want to do. There is no reason. Don't ask me for a reason. As to the purpose and objective, do you best to figure it out with your greatest imagination. Think however you like. But all these people who died had one thing in common. They were all those who had opposed, set up, or participated in conspiracies against the Xikong and Duanmu families. Although the killers did not say anything, but the dead had automatically revealed the truth. And thus, while the Xikong family and Duanmu family were still kept in the dark, they suddenly realized that ways of the world seemed to change again. A few months prior, they went from one of the super families to a poor household overnight, living past each day with great difficulty. There was no reason or cause. All their customers and partners had suddenly cut off all relations with them and even suppressed them in every possible way. Now, after a few months, the entire situation had changed. This time, there was also no reason or cause. It was just as unfathomable, or perhaps, even more unimaginable. All these partners and even strangers came running to them overnight. First, they offered hefty gifts to express their apology, then made the request to collaborate again. And all of them were extremely respectful and polite, even more respectful when they were working well together. All those terms for partnership simply shoved money to them. How could it still be called business? All of them had a clear viewpoint. The Three Holy Lands is not someone we can offend, but they will not simply exterminate and kill people. But this bunch of culprits this time would kill the moment there is any disagreement. Which is scarier? Everyone was extremely careful about not offending anyone from these two families. Some wealthy and influential businessmen were extremely careful in being polite in their manners, even greeting the guards at the door of these two families. They were fearful that they may accidentally offend them if they weren't respectful enough, as if a calamity would befall them instantly the moment they do. After all that suffering and grievances, with nowhere to turn for help even if they were willing to humble themselves, such an unusual situation had left these two families feeling extremely relieved. Humans would never learn how to treasure things if they never experienced losing them. If they never tasted poverty, they'd never know how not easy it was to be wealthy. If they never experienced being treated with indifference, they'd never know how rare and difficult it was to be treated with respect. And all this, gaining after losing, then regaining it. That sort of feeling was more thought-provoking than someone who had lived their life again, and triggered a huge change in their attitudes. That was the case for these two families. After this incident, these two families were like phoenixes reborn from ashes. Because of this incident, all the despicable vermin in the family had been eradicated, making it more clean. And they were even more bonded. As if in these short few months of adversity, they gained endless foundations. And a foundation like this was simply the poverty after wealth. The greatest wealth in life was to experience poverty with those who are less fortunate. Only with that experience could it release the greatest motivation in people. Or perhaps to say, poverty was the greatest wealth. A person or a family experiencing poverty was not scary. Even if it experienced generations of being poor, it was also not scary because they're already used to being poor, used to being down and out. But the real tragedy and misery was falling into poverty when you were at the peak of your life, after having wealth and power. And these two families knew better than anyone else to treasure things precisely because they had experienced such adversity, standing back up with great determination, back to owning wealth and power. So after this, Xikong family and Duanmu family became the most well-knit families of the entire continent, and the two big families that made the fastest developments, becoming super families that stood at the peak of the Xian continent. If thousands of years later, the Duanmu family, Xikong family, and Dongfang family were to thoroughly rise, each occupying one direction, they'd each be a huge threat. Duanmu in the north, Xikong in the south, Dongfang in the east. Shall never fall. The sudden changes of this entire incident had brought about the rise of three giant families in less than a year. Of course, this would be for a later time. In this incident, there were people who were accomplished. But conversely, there were also people who were unlucky. And they were the people who took over the businesses of the Jun family after they had retreated. The Jun family had temporarily retreated into hiding due to circumstances, but they had no intentions of giving up on their enterprises. The businesses that belonged to the Jun family would forever belong to the Jun family. After their retreat, those who were in charge of managing the business were iron pillars of the Jun family. But a portion of people firmly believed that the Jun family had no chance of making a comeback, practically snatching and swallowing up all the businesses that belonged to the Jun family overnight. In this uproar, these people were also mercilessly wiped out. And they were the most thoroughly wiped out. The Huang family in Tianxiang, for example. A third-rate family that belonged to Huang Taiyang of the illusory blood sea. Enemies of Jun family and Dugu family. When the Jun family retreated, they outrageously took over the Jun family's businesses, proudly claiming credit for their acts. They had seemed to have a boundless future for a period of time. But in this unforeseen event, they were thoroughly wiped out. The entire family was exterminated, and even the place of the family was razed to the ground. And those who took over Blizzard Silver City's magnificent jewel hall were also all killed. A single month. In just a mere 1 month. The entire Xian continent had entered an unprecedented state of bloodshed, and everyone feared for their safety. The Yutang kingdom had saw the opportunity of conquering Tianxiang after the Jun family had retreated, and thus started a war. The two countries engaged in battle. But after hearing of this incident, the Yutang kingdom instantly withdrew their troops. They instantly abandoned all the land they had already conquered, retreating back into Yutang territory at rapid speed. They even abandoned their newly formed bases. Within this month, excluding the kills by the Dongfang family assassins, other kills out of revenge, and also those killed in the battle between the two nations, those who had died in this unfathomable incident alone was estimated to be not less than 20,000. 20,000 people. This number may not seem like a lot. But these people who were sacrificed were all strong Xian cultivators. Amongst these people, the one with the lowest Xian cultivation was at the peak of a silver Xian. The entire world, from south to north, from east to west, underwent a huge cleansing with fresh blood. And this bunch of killers was extremely hardworking, even forming groups, like locusts invading a territory. All those who had anything to do with the incidents mentioned above were all killed with no further discussion. Another unique similarity was that they came and went like the wind, ruthless in their acts, killing in one hit and immediately leaving. When you investigated in the east, more cases happened simultaneously in the south, north, and west. When faced with such a bloody incident, the three Holy Lands immediately took action to respond, deploying their affiliated families. But the moment they deployed a particular family, it revealed the relationship between this family and the three Holy Lands, so not a single person was treated unjustly. This was the equivalent of heavily slapping across the three Holy Lands' face. And it wasn't just a single slap. It was slap after slap, continuously, unceasingly. How many affiliated families were destroyed? And how many slaps there were? And the most upsetting thing was, so many people had died. And there were so many mysterious killers. But no matter how they investigated, they couldn't find a single one. Much less capture one. This incident thoroughly enraged the people from three Holy Lands. And just at this time, the call for help from Chrysanthemum City had arrived. Coincidentally. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 847. The Battlefield of Lunatics. A mysterious expert has appeared in Chrysanthemum City. His strength is shocking, defeating both second-level venerables in one strike and also the joint attack from Spirit Xian experts. Currently, this bunch of people have yet to leave Chrysanthemum City. This was undoubtedly a target. An obvious target. If they wanted to find an answer, they could only start from there and track the clues. So the three Holy Lands gave this matter their utmost attention. They had all came to the same conclusion after careful discussion, to be able to defeat two second-level venerables in one strike, from the looks of the current situation, without using the power of heaven and earth. Even a fourth-level venerable would not be capable of doing this. It could be inferred that this person had the cultivation level of a saint at the very least. According to reports, there was not only one person, but over 20 of them. It was said that they were all exceptional experts. Then from this theory, there was more than one saint expert in these 20 people. If there was only one person, how could he be so daring as to face the three Holy Lands? And to provoke them so blatantly and openly? If they really wanted to deal with an expert like this, they had to be extremely cautious when they did things. What they were facing right now was not merely revenge anymore. The three Holy Lands needed to regain their face and dignity. The three Holy Lands needed to prove their might. In 10,000 years, the three Holy Lands more or less stopped appearing in the pugilistic world. It looked like the people nowadays forgot about how terrifying the three Holy Lands could be. To dare to put up a haughty stunt like this. So after Mo Wudao seeked instructions from the Saint Emperor's palace. The numerous Saint Emperors were also agitated and furious, giving instructions. No matter who the opponent was, he must be annihilated as quickly as possible. For the sake of ending this battle quickly and succeeding in one attempt, the three Holy Lands had put in great efforts, each sending one Saint Emperor, 3 saints, and 6 venerables. An extremely powerful team of 30 experts from the three Holy Lands rushed over to Chrysanthemum City. They absolutely had to eradicate all traces of defiance in an imposing manner in at one go. And re-establish the three Holy Lands' impressive reputation. The higher-ups of the three Holy Lands had their considerations in deploying such a powerful lineup, amongst all those who were a worthy match. May Xue Yan had already turned into ashes when she died with the 3 saints from the illusory blood sea. Jun Moxie had also fallen under the sneak attack of Saint Emperor Zhan Mubai, even bringing a Snake King along too. There was no doubt that this vengeful power had came from Tianfa. Other than Tianfa, there was no other place of earth that was capable of such powerful strength. And there was even the possibility that the event this time was the work of those surviving seniors of Tianfa joining forces with that mysterious master of Jun Moxie and leading the Xian beasts of Tianfa who had taken form to exact revenge. This Chrysanthemum City was no longer the trap the three Holy Lands had arranged for Dongfang family. And instead, it had turned into the trap Tianfa forest had set up for them. So, they could not afford to not be cautious. In fact, from what the three Holy Lands were aware of. Only if all the elites of TNFA were activated. Then it would be possible for such terrifying results to happen within such a short period of time. No matter what. They could not stand by and watch and could not be confused by the surface appearance of the matter. What sort of logic was there for the enemy to reveal all their strength at one go? Furthermore, there was still an unrivaled threat hidden in the dark, the 9 14th young master. He was the real greatest concern. None of them forgot, and did not dare to forget, that there had been no news since the crazy 9 14th young master broke the seal and left TNFA. Right now, there were so many things happening. The three Holy Lands were being retaliated against so openly. And 9 14th young master had always been someone who must take his revenge. No one dared to make the promise that he wouldn't use this opportunity to seek revenge when the three Holy Lands were in trouble. So it was absolutely necessary to send such a powerful force. To the point that even the misty illusory manor, which never engaged in worldly affairs, also sent a team of mysterious experts to cooperate with the three Holy Lands operation. But this group of people had made their stance clear: if the 9 14th young master does not appear, then they would not participate in any disputes of the mundane world. Misty Illusory Manor and Huyan Ao Bo of the three Holy Lands were quick to agree: if 9 14th young master did not appear, and they still needed aid from the Misty Illusory Manor with their strength, then weren't their statuses lowered? From 4 directions, almost 50 experts who were capable of shaking the world by stomping their feet set off, silently heading straight for Chrysanthemum City. Inescapable nets were also placed all over the world. Mo Wu Dao and the rest all had an odd feeling: the final battle had been brought forward. But they still did not know who the opponent in this battle was. The Saint Emperor's Palace released the news: in just a day, the war for seizing the heavens would be in another year. This matter absolutely had to be resolved quickly, and everyone must return to prepare for the war for seizing the heavens. Regardless of casualties. No matter if they were right or wrong. All in all, this matter would be the last battle in the mundane world before the war for seizing the heavens. There was only room for victory for this battle, and no room for defeat. And they had to return with minimal losses. Because if this battle fails, if these experts were lost in Chrysanthemum City, then the three Holy Lands would really not have enough strength to fight in the war for seizing the heavens. When that time came, the three Holy Lands, which had enjoyed 10,000 years of reputation, would not only become a criminal in history, but forever carved on the pillar of disgrace. So there was no room for mistakes in this battle. To ensure the victory of this battle, the Saint Emperor's Palace had even secretly sent a few more Saint Emperors to constantly watch over the situation in Chrysanthemum City. The three Holy Lands had practically deployed all their elites. They absolutely had to shatter the enemy in an imposing manner and destroy the higher-ups of TNFA, thoroughly eradicating future worries. Then, carrying the prestige and might of the victory of this battle, they would head to the Pillar of Heaven's mountain, chase away the strange races, return, and encircle and annihilate the 9 14th young master. This was one act that would reaffirm the three Holy Lands' absolute position. They would then order the imperial powers to alter historical records, burn all the previous records, and change them. Let the name of the three Holy Lands continue as a legacy of the world. Dominating history books. Since we've already done it, then let's do it till the end. Something like this. The 9 first young master had already done once. If the 9 first young master could do it, then the three Holy Lands could also do it. Furthermore, we are doing it for the sake of the world. We put in the effort and did our work. We are heroes. We are the ones who did an outstanding job. We have the rights to enjoy this glory. And what's more, we do it for the sake of humanity. This is a majestic slogan, a majestic goal, and we are the most majestic people. Under this sort of crazy thought, the people of 3 holy lands finally turned out in full strength. Countless of legendary experts returned to the pugilistic world, bringing along with them their zealotry, their ideals. Such high tension, possibly triggering off any moment. The entire world entered a state of hostility, and the heavy and suffocating atmosphere enveloped the entire continent. It could be said that the higher-ups of the 3 holy lands, in their glorious achievements and majestic goal of great fame, profit, and dominating the whole of history, was a little too zealous. Or even a little delusional. From a certain point of view, they were already half a lunatic. And their opponent Jun Moxie, who had been provoked by them through vengeance, was also a little crazy, which also made him half a lunatic. Besides, there was a complete lunatic, a one-man army, the 9 Nether 14th young master. This was one who had inherited the ambitions of the 9 Nether first young master, views conquering the continent as his mission, a complete and thorough lunatic. The entire world had become the battlefield of these 3 aberrants, 2 half-lunatics and 1 complete lunatic. The 3 holy lands had to get their wish of their fame and fortune. Jun Moxie, for the sake of revenge, also had to, even if he dies in the process. As for the 9 Nether 14th young master, he was a madman who wanted to conquer the world even if he had to go through samsara 10,000 times. And during this period of time, Jun Moxie had become more free in his time. This sort of situation was simply intentionally created by Jun Moxie. It was the most ideal situation. His original intention was to have a huge, large-scale showdown. You 3 holy lands' original intentions was for the sake of the world, for the common people. I know, I understand, and I even have a little respect. But I don't care what your original intentions are, and I don't care how majestic you are. These are not a reason for you to hurt me. The war for seizing the heavens is drawing close, and I, Jun Moxie, am aware. And I also know the severe consequences if the war for seizing the heavens is lost. But this is still not a reason why I should endure all these pent-up grievances. If I cannot even take proper care of my family and friends, then what, for the sake of the world, can I speak of? What rights do I have to say that it's for the sake of the world? This young master doesn't mind you not treating your mission seriously, using your glory as your capital and reason for to perpetuate in evil acts and harming others. And I can't be bothered. If you guys are good, then we are all good. If you don't wish to be nice, then how about we all get destroyed together? Gadang it. It's not just me who is dying. What concerns for the bigger picture? Feck off. The entire world would be saints if everyone had that concern for the bigger picture. The 3 holy lands were preparing for battle. But Jun Moxie over here had already finished preparing for the battle a long time ago. Or rather to say, he had already been prepared before he exited TNFA. Everything was already ready, and the only thing missing was the enemy. Jun Moxie had an almost sick way of thinking. I only want to live properly. I have no intentions to harm anyone. I just want to live freely, and at ease, that is all. You let me live peacefully, and I'll naturally return the favor and let you live even more peacefully. But if you are not going to let me live peacefully, then no one shall live peacefully. On what basis are you making me live miserably while you live comfortably? Comparing with each other, how different can we get? We all only have one fecking life. Strong and abnormal like the strange races. So what if you have 2 bodies joined together? There is still only one fecking d*ck. As long as I get to live my life the way I want to, who cares about what happens after I die? If I, Jun Moxie, die, and you dig up my corpse and mutilate it 10,000 times over, I also wouldn't know. But as long as I have one single breath remaining, then no one shall think of living better than me. You made me upset, so you are bound to feel even more upset. I assure you that you will all regret this. But I fecking wouldn't. Even if the entire planet is destroyed, this fecking world is not mine. It's not Earth. From this sort of attitude, Jun Moxie was in fact more insane than all the previous 9 nether young masters. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 848. It's been a while. Xue Yan. Jun Moxie was currently in an extremely hidden place, holding his teacup, sitting leisurely in a chair. He had already returned to his original appearance, his entire body at ease, completely unfettered, wearing an expression that said that even if the sky fell down, it wouldn't matter. Truly in a state of tranquility. Opposite him was Dongfang Wenqing with a face full of worry. Dongfang Wenqing at this moment had long forgotten about the hatred between him and his nephew. Only worry and concern filled his eyes. Since Jun Moxie returned and told him of his plans, Dongfang First Master's sighing never seemed to cease. Even when he was sleeping, he was still sighing. Moxie. I thought about it. This matter, your decision, it is still too risky, it's not worth it. Really not worth it. Dongfang Wenqing said with anguish. Even if we want revenge, even if we seek justice for ourselves, there's no need to be this extreme. We should do what is within our means. Right now, the battle is beginning to unfold. We are literally trying to hit a stone with an egg. We don't have the tiniest chance of victory. Your uncle is extremely worried. Dongfang First Master was so troubled it felt as if his intestines were tangled. He had already reprimanded himself mentally countless of times. You really should die. You deserve to be doomed for a life of being trampled upon now. How great would it be to let this rascal Moxie follow Wen Dao or Wen Jian? I just had to insist on him following me. Had to insist on getting my revenge for a while. Now great. I've gotten myself into the mud. Life and death were not the main concern. The most frustrating thing was that this nephew was behaving so flawlessly and he was aware of it. But he didn't dare tell anyone about it. Looking at Moxie now that the stage had already been set. This battle was inevitable now. Who can I tell? Tell mother? Isn't that old madam going to have to forget about sleeping from now onwards? Or even personally come down to stake it all with her grandson? That is also highly possible. Tell my younger sister? Since the death of brother-in-law, she has already become completely disheartened. If I tell her that her only son left is going all out with someone, and it's a battle that is completely impossible to win, God knows if she will collapse again and go unconscious for another 10 or 8 years. These 2 people were perhaps the only 2 people who could convince Jun Moxie to stop. But Dongfang Wenqing would absolutely not dare to inform them about this, even if he was beaten to death. Because no matter what the consequences, he was incapable of carrying either of them. As for Dongfang Wenjian and Dongfang Wendu, Dongfang Wenqing did not even need to ask to know what sort of reaction those 2 would have. They'd definitely raise their brows in shock, then break out in loud laughter. And laugh, good nephew. As expected of my nephew. Truly a hero and good man. Uncle is a hero and the nephew is divinely courageous. How could I miss being a part of a magnificent undertaking that is this crazy? You have to wait. I want to accompany my nephew in gambling with my life. I'll kill whoever who tries to stop me. Thinking till this point, Dongfang Wenqing felt completely weak. He was on the verge of crying. This nephew is truly a complete, official, and thorough troublemaker. You've put this old man in the fire rack and you're leaving me there to endure all of it. A feeling like this was really miserable. How is this risky? Uncle, you can just relax and just watch carefully as your nephew kills his way in all directions. Just take it as an exciting martial arts show is happening soon. Jun Moxie said chucklingly. Besides, everyone only has one life. What makes either of us scarier than the other? If it's not time for you to die, you might even meet a miracle when you jump off a cliff. But when it is time for you to die, you can even die from swallowing your phlegm. There's no need to worry and fuss over what may or may not happen. If it's meant to be, it'll be. Feck it. Just do whatever you want. Dongfang First Master had not died from worrying, but he almost choked to his death from hearing this speech. You little bastard. How can you talk like this? If you little bastard really meet with any mishap, it will be a miracle if your grandma doesn't skin me in a single day. It'll be odd if your mother doesn't see me as her enemy. I'll instantly become utterly isolated. Your uncle here will have no other path aside from hanging myself on a tree. You little rascal. Bastardly thing. So ultimately you were just worrying about yourself. Don't worry. It'll be alright. At least you'll definitely be alright. Grandma is not that sort of unreasonable person. Besides, I think Grandma still considers for you, always leaving you some face for everything. Jun Moxie grinned and said. Dongfang Wenqing glared at him. His voice cracking as he shouted. Did you consider for me when you fart? Leave some face for me. Your uncle is almost 60. Yet he was still hung on the tree and had his ass whipped just last year. Leaving face for me. This face is sure fecking big. Jun Moxie was dumbfounded. He had never imagined that this mighty uncle would have such an unspeakable past. Grandma is truly intrepid. Dongfang Wenqing sighed for a while before finally stomping his feet. Through gritted teeth, he said, Forget it. Forget it. I also don't care that much anymore. I have that bit of self-awareness at the very least. I have finally thought it out already. Either way. In this chrysanthemum city, I'll just go wild for once. Isn't it just sacrificing my life to accompany a man? If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But as long as there is the slightest chance of hope, I'll let you return safely even if it's going to cost me my life. If I can't, then both of us uncle and nephew will just be on our way together. What else am I worried about? Fecking hell. He walked out with his head hung low as he scolded begrudgingly, going straight to his room to sleep. Looked like the Dongfang First Master had truly achieved supreme enlightenment this time. Jun Moxie put his palms together and said in a monk-like manner, Sir, you have been enlightened. Then he vanished with a flash, entering the Hongjun Pagoda that he had not entered in a long while. After entering the Hongjun Pagoda and feeling that long-awaited dense and rich heaven-earth spiritual qi, Jun Moxie's eyes widened in shock from the unexpected situation before him. Right before young Master Jun's eyes, that petite white body of Xue Yan was sitting cross-legged, absolutely still, and a series of crackling sounds of the skeleton could be heard coming from her body. At the same time, to Jun Moxie's delight, a small spirit energy whirlpool had formed above Xue Yan's head, and all the spiritual qi in the Hongjun Pagoda was all rushing over and entering into the petite frame continuously through it, absorbing it all directly into her body. And Xue Yan was currently in a relatively peculiar state. Her body was upright, and although she was in her Xian beast form, but amidst that dense spiritual qi above her head, a vague silhouette of a beautiful woman could be seen. That same silhouette of that peerless talent that had not been seen in a while. One who walked the scope of the heaven and the earth, protected the desires of the heaven and earth. One who rashly beheaded another, nurtured a heart of ice. These were signs that would only appear at the second level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. Jun Moxie never imagined that Xue Yan would advance this rapidly. He had only not come in for a couple of days. But when he finally came in, he just coincidentally met Xue Yan breaking through. This was too surprising. And from the looks of it, it seemed like the breakthrough to a new realm was drawing to an end, about to be wrapped up smoothly. Looking at her and recalling all the suffering he had to go through when he was breaking through back then, Jun Moxie couldn't help but let out a sigh. Is life really that unfair? He did not consider the fact that Xue Yan had the cultivation of a fourth-level venerable, only a bit away from becoming a saint. Now that she was recultivating and practicing a heaven-defying art like the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, if her advancement wasn't fast, then it'd really make no sense. Young Master Jun could finally put his anxious heart down after seeing Xue Yan's smooth progress. He had originally worried that his beloved might need to face the same torture and danger he went through back then. Just as he only had eyes for his lover and nothing else, something else entered his field of vision. Xue Yan was currently directly under that heaven-earth spirit vein, but Snake King laid quietly at the spot she originally slept at. Jun Moxie's lifted mood instantly turned heavy. He walked over slowly, sitting down beside Snake King. Looking at that face that was in deep sleep, he let out a deep sigh as he whispered, "Green Hunter. You. Why did you do that back then?" Sigh. This sacrifice and feelings. How could I? Jun Moxie, how do I bear it? How do I repay it? Snake King remained unresponsive, quietly in deep slumber. Her breathing was even, so there was no longer any danger to her life. There were no signs of her regaining consciousness. Jun Moxie sat under the tree in a daze. Tiny sparkles rained from the tree, landing on him and Snake King. Young Master Jun's eyes were in a daze, and he wasn't even sure what he was thinking about. His mind seemed tranquil, but also kind of messy. There seemed to be so many things to think about, but it also seemed as if there was absolutely nothing worth recalling. Two ladies were in here. One, for his sake, for his family's sake, was reverted back to her original form, and still worked extremely hard to cultivate even until now. The other was put to an irreversible eternal sleep because of his moment of carelessness. All this, everything, was because of him. At home, there is still Dugu Xiao Yi and Guan Qing Han waiting for my return. Grandpa and Mother, they're all probably praying for me every day, praying that I will be able to return safely, worrying every day for my safety. And third uncle and aunt. At the same time they worry about me, they are doing their best to make preparations for redeeming themselves. The great wish to save all the orphans in the world, returning them their rightful joy in life. What is it that humans live for? Jun Moxie suddenly thought of this eternal question. Before he had come to this place, perhaps everyone had different goals, but right now, Jun Moxie could confirm that in this world, many people were living for his sake, and that was all. If he was no longer around, his enemies would definitely be laughing happily. But many relatives would definitely break down because of it. This was a responsibility that he must carry. And all these were a motivation for Jun Moxie to continue living. Mother's heart is currently split into two halves. One half has already died along with father, and the other is still stubbornly beating only for my existence in this world. Yi Gu Han lived for Murong Xiu's sake, and at the end, died for Murong Xiu's sake as well. And third Aunt Han Yan Yao, who swore not to turn back. Mei Xue Yan and Green Hunter, who were willing to sacrifice their lives for my sake. I must make all these people who care for me laugh and smile happily. As for all those enemies, they should be entrenched in nightmare for eternity. Who asked you to choose to make me, Jun Moxie, your enemy? Jun Moxie breathed out slowly, and the dazed look in his eyes slowly fading away, turning clear. He mumbled, "From now on, I will no longer live for my sake and for the world's sake. I will only live for you all. All of you who love and care for me." After thinking through, Jun Moxie, who had regained his clarity of mind, tidied up his feelings and felt much more relaxed. The war of seizing the heavens concerned the future of Xian continent. It was undoubtedly important. Invasion by the strange races was also a grim situation, and the consequences were even worse. But the decision I have made, it may be a little extreme or perhaps indeed a little too much, but it is not wrong. I absolutely am not wrong. One has to first cultivate their moral character and manage their household before they can govern the country and bring peace to the world. If my family is not safe, what has the world ending got to do with me? I have never been a chivalrous hero. I am just a small person who does not have great and far ambitions. That is all. As the saying goes, if the officials forced the people to rebel, they have no choice but to rebel. Maybe many people are able to willingly sacrifice themselves no matter the consequences for the sake of the world. But I, Jun Moxie, is definitely not included with them. I can die in battle in the war for seizing the heavens, but I cannot be killed by you guys using the war for seizing the heavens as your reason. I am not wrong. Jun Moxie said out loud in a deep voice, suddenly feeling extremely carefree. He noticed something off after saying this sentence, and turned and looked only to see Mei Xue Yan had already stopped practicing and was right before him, looking at him worriedly. I'm fine. Really. I had just thought some things through, so I'm good. I'm really good. Jun Moxie gave a gentle but resolute smile. He might have sounded a little repetitive in saying this sentence, but his tone was increasingly more resolute. Mei Xue Yan blinked. Suddenly, she stretched out a claw and wrote on the sand, "Give me the pills." Pills? Jun Moxie jerked. He observed Mei Xue Yan closely, and to his surprise, Mei Xue Yan had already reached the 8th-level peak of Xian beasts. She wanted the pills now. After the breakthrough this time, was clearly because she wanted to break through straight to the realm where she could attain her human form. He had only not seen her for a couple of days, but he had never expected that Mei Xue Yan was capable of making such substantial breakthrough. Although Mei Xue Yan had been advancing constantly, but breakthroughs would get slower the more you advanced, even if it was recultivating. In Jun Moxie's estimations, it would still require at least a month before she could return to a level 8 Xian beast. But right now, Mei Xue Yan had completely brought this time frame forward by a whole month. Looking at that determined and unconcealable anguish in Mei Xue Yan's eyes, Jun Moxie suddenly understood everything. Snake King's injury was a huge blow to me, but how could it not be a huge trigger for Mei Xue Yan? After Snake King had been injured, Mei Xue Yan, who had been greatly affected, was definitely practicing day and night without rest. Had it been anyone else, there was no room for forcefully advancing with the help of the pills. Be it being affected by the devil's bite, or their current realm being insufficient, or outburst of the enormous medicinal effect. They were all enough to shatter their bodies completely and cause them to die. But Xue Yan was different. Because Xue Yan was cultivating the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. Secondly, Xue Yan was in the Hongjun Pagoda. Thirdly, Xian beasts who wanted to take form only needed the mind of a level 9 peak. Although Xue Yan was still a little far away from it in terms of her strength, but her original cultivation level was still that of a 4th level venerable. And due to the temporary breakthroughs with the use of the Saint King pills, her cultivation had already discreetly broken the limits of a venerable and reached the realm of a saint. Fourthly, Xue Yan's meridians had already been broken through by the enormous energy. So all the hindrances were no longer a problem. Xue Yan had already regained the cultivation level of an 8th level peak. It was already not easy for her to endure it until now. If not because the breakthrough progress had coincidentally met with the breakthrough of the 2nd level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, Xue Yan would have wanted to do this even earlier. Jun Moxie nodded his head, retrieving a few jade bottles from his sleeves. First, he handed a bone-tempering pill for Xue Yan to take. Then the Heaven Vitality Pill, Vitality Congregation Pill, Vitality Linkage Pill, Void Extremes Pill, and Heaven Extremes Pill. Xue Yan had no hesitation. After dissolving the medicinal properties of the bone-tempering pill through the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, she directly took the Heaven Vitality Pill and ate it. A long while later. Moxie, go and fetch me some clothes. And you go outside for a while first. Jun Moxie was waiting, only to hear a familiar voice. He turned around elatedly, only to see Xue Yan still in her original form. But she had already opened her mouth to give him instructions and was glaring at him. Xue Yan's clothing had been completely destroyed and she reverted back to her original form. She could easily take form after taking the 3 magical pills without having to wait until she consumed all the 5 pills. Clearly, Xue Yan was thinking of advancing with the Void Extremes Pill and Heaven Extremes Pill after taking human form, achieving its greatest effects. But the moment she regained her human form, she would be faced with the awkward situation of being completely Nike'd. So the first thing Xue Yan had to do was to chase this hooligan in front of her out. Otherwise, the consequences were unimaginable. Why must I go out first? It's not like I haven't seen it before. We're already like husband and wife. Is there a need to be so shy? Jun Moxie cackled evilly, rubbing his chin. His eyes were sparkling. Young Master Jun's indecent talk that had been suppressed for a long time reappeared after his heart regained its state of clarity. You. Oh. Then I might as well just wait for a few more days then. I'm not in a rush anyway. And technically my strength is still insufficient for me to take form. Haste makes waste. So it might be better for me to go slow and steady. There's no need to be in such a rush. Xue Yan had her ways when dealing with Jun Moxie. Her one sentence was enough to make young Master Jun anxious. My good lady, I've been waiting anxiously for you to regain your form, but you are telling me that you are in no rush at such a crucial time like this? You're in no rush. But I am. Fine, fine, fine. Here's the clothes. I'm going out now. Is that good enough? Left without a choice, Jun Moxie compromised begrudgingly, secretly gritting his teeth. Little thing. When you've regained your human form, I definitely must let you know how strong this young master is. Young Master Jun took a set of clothes and set it on the ground, then slowly left the Hongjun Pagoda, turning around thrice to look with every step he took. When he went back in, Jun Moxie felt giddy looking at the sight right before his eyes. shrouded in dense heaven-earth spiritual chi. Under the glow of that magical tree, a familiar white silhouette stood there silently. In the mistiness, a pair of beautiful eyes, filled with desire, endless love and glistening tears, was looking at Jun Moxie, blinking slowly, as if fairies from heaven had descended onto earth. It's been a while. Xue Yan. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 849. It's great having you around. Jun Moxie wanted to smile, but he realized all the muscles on his face had froze. He wanted to walk over, but realized that he couldn't move his leg. The great happiness had left his entire body beyond his control. The blissful feeling of regaining after losing something filling up his heart in that instant. Although he knew that this day would come, although he obviously knew that he would see his long-awaited beloved after coming back, although he felt that he had already prepared himself to welcome Xue Yan's return. But Jun Moxie still could not bear it when it happened. It seemed like there was huge stress and pressure that came from too much happiness. Xue Yan. Jun Moxie felt his voice trembling for no reason. It was a little difficult for him to say these two words. His throat felt dry. There was a tingly sensation in his nose from happiness. Amidst the dense spiritual chi, that white figure trembled violently. Her lashes fluttered and 2 drops of tears suddenly fell gently. The spiritual chi dissipated and gathered, moving about. Xue Yan took 2 small steps, looking at Jun Moxie. The trembling of her delicate frame got even stronger, a weak smile on her face. But suddenly, she squatted on the ground and covered her face with her palms. Tears poured down, seeping through the gaps between her fair fingers. Jun Moxie let out a husky growl from his throat. The next moment, he had already enveloped his lover before him tightly in his arms. And Xue Yan had abandoned all the reservations she had earlier, silently weeping tears of joy, tightly hugging him. Although these two people have been meeting almost daily during this period of time. But this meeting after Xue Yan recultivated and regained her human form. Both of them felt like it was a lifetime ago since they had met. As if it had been too long since their last meeting. The two embraced each other tightly, feeling each other's existence. But no words were spoken. After a long while, Xue Yan gently struggled out of Jun Moxie's hug, her face a shy and bright shade of red. Lightly brushing the end of her hair, she asked softly, "Did I change?" "Changed. You turned even prettier. In the past, it was as beautiful as the fairies in heaven. Now you are a fairy that has descended in this world, even prettier than the past." Jun Moxie looked at the beauty before him greedily, genuinely exclaiming in adoration. Still as silver-tongued. During this period of time, tears started welling up in Xue Yan's eyes again, as if she wanted to say something, but she forcefully swallowed those words. With a trembling voice, she said, "Thanks to you." Although she did not speak of the words she wanted to say, but both of them knew, this period of time was the lowest point of Xue Yan's life, the period during which she felt inferior about herself. As long as Jun Moxie had the slightest abnormality during this period of time, it did not have to be detestation or abandonment. As long as he suddenly showed slightly more concern and care, it would have been sufficient for the extremely sensitive Xue Yan to be scarred for eternity. But luckily, Xue Yan did not disappoint. From start to end, Jun Moxie had used the same attitude as per usual and did not intentionally show excessive concern. His emotions had not faltered the slightest. Everything was just as it was in the past. But only this sort of ordinary feelings was sincere. Excessively displaying his concerns would have in turn revealed the doubts in their hearts. Xue Yan and Jun Moxie understood this logic. There was no need for words. Actions had proved everything. Xue Yan concentrated on cultivating, hoping to recover as soon as possible. But young Master Jun was also battling with himself internally, ensuring that there was no increase or decrease, maintaining everything the same as the past. Xue Yan had successfully recultivated. But during this period of time, Jun Moxie's mental strength had also leveled up. The benefit during this period of time had been quite significant. Silly girl. How could Jun Moxie not understand what Xue Yan meant? He sniffled and grinned. You and I are one. If I break down first and lose my original feelings, you'll naturally also break down. But, if you broke down first, what would happen to me? He gently stretched his hand out and enveloped Xue Yan into his hug. Sighing blissfully, he said, "We are one." Xue Yan had no intention of struggling, gently adjusting her head to lay on the sturdy chest of her lover, a look of bliss on her face. She did not say anything. There was already no need to say anything else right now. Because no matter what she said, it was all redundant. There was no need for it. As long as the heart remained as it was at the beginning, the feelings would be eternal. The purple spiritual qi in the Hongjun pagoda swirled about slowly, the sparkles from the tree falling slowly upon these two people. They both remained in this position, hugging each other without moving for a long time. After a long while, Jun Moxie broke the rare silence by chuckling. Young Master Jun blissfully inhaled the maiden scent on Xue Yan's body. With great satisfaction, he said, "My wife. Let's find a time to consummate first. You are really unaware. I've been enduring it to the point of explosion. If you don't believe me, you can touch." A pervert would always be a pervert. And his lecherous personality would be revealed the moment he opened his mouth. But this pervert was really capable of breaking any awkward situation just by opening his mouth. Xue Yan giggled, pushing him away, feeling both angry and amused. She was still feeling extremely moved. But this scoundrel just had to say something so indecent. You can touch? Is that something that can be touched randomly? He really has no shame. How infuriating. Then you can look for your sister Guan. Why are you looking for me? Xue Yan scoffed, her face completely red. Struggling out from his embrace, she gave a mischievous grin, suddenly flying up and far away. But just this alone revealed her extremely highly skilled agility, not the least inferior to the past. Xue Yan had just regained her human form, but she already had movement technique that was not inferior to hers in the past. As if her strength had already completely returned and she had already reached a new level. I have been exhausted during this period of time without you. Jun Moxie sighed lightly, but did not show any intentions of chasing. He only remained standing in the same spot, watching Xue Yan's graceful figure, exclaiming, "Now that you're back, it's great having you around." Xue Yan stopped and softly replied, "I know." Xue Yan's eyes fell onto Green Hunter, who was laying on the heaven-earth spirit vein, a gloomy look in her eyes as she said in a low voice, "When I saw Green Hunter laying here that day, I knew. So I did not question. I am not willing to ask. And I couldn't bring myself to ask." She looked at Jun Moxie passionately, saying with confidence, "But I believe everything will get better. Green Hunter will also wake up. Aren't I the best example?" Jun Moxie nodded his head heavily. Yes. She will definitely wake up. Xue Yan was more or less aware of what Jun Moxie had been doing during this period of time. She did not need young Master Jun to further elaborate. The two of them stood silently, an extremely complex feeling in their hearts. Their reunion today, Xue Yan's successful achievement of her human form, the happiness in their hearts exploding, as if no matter how they celebrated, they would be unable to express the elation and joy in their hearts. But Snake King's injury and the situation this period of time still ultimately left a tinge of worry to the joy of this reunion. All sorts of emotions welled up in their hearts. They both felt as if they had so many things to talk about, but they couldn't say it. Xue Yan, which realm are you roughly at currently? Tell me about it. Jun Moxie broke the silence. I was at the 8th level peak earlier when I used the pills. After using the 3 magical pills, I managed to break through to the 9th level peak. The realm to attain human form. The Void Extremes pill and Heaven Extremes pill have allowed me to advance even further. Right now, although I have yet to regain my former strength, but I am more or less at the middle tier of a 1st level venerable. Xue Yan gently frowned. With my current level of cultivation, plus the skills of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, if met with regular experts who are below 4th level venerable, I should have no issues in protecting myself. But to aid you in fighting Saint King and Saint Emperor experts, I am still not strong enough. I can't be of much help. Xue Yan was feeling a little unsatisfied. Although she had already made really fast progress, she didn't even dare to dream of doing it. But Jun Moxie was in need of a main force for the battle with 3 holy lands anytime. Her current meagerly amount of strength was still far from being enough. But Jun Moxie's jaw dropped to the ground in shock as he looked at the beauty before him. He remembered clearly that when he broke through the 2nd level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, he had barely made it past the level of a Jade Xian. When he broke past the 3rd level, he was a Sky Xian. But Xue Yan right now was 10 levels away. How could this be? Compared to anyone else, no matter how big the difference was, it couldn't possibly be this great. When I broke through the 2nd level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, I should have already reached the peak of an Earth Xian, close to the level of a Sky Xian. Seeing his confusion, Xue Yan charmingly rolled her eyes at him, gracefully smiling as she said, "You must know. After that breakthrough, I consecutively used 5 different pills. This was the equivalent of increasing in almost 200 years worth of pure strength. You have neglected all this, didn't you? But that is still faster than me. Isn't it a bit too much?" Young Master Jun was feeling a little unfair, feeling like he had just become inferior before his lover. A sense of defeat like this left him extremely bothered, genuinely wishing to grab the beauty before him and give her perky bottom a hit to get his payback. Don't be so unsatisfied. All those magical skills of yours. I don't know them. Xue Yan glared at him. Jun Moxie instantly figured out where the problem in the difference between their skills was upon hearing Xue Yan's reply. First, Xue Yan had good foundations and a lot of experience. Second, when young Master Jun was practicing, a lot of the heaven-earth spiritual qi that he had absorbed in the outside world was offered to the Hongjun Pagoda. This was also the reason why only a small amount of the large amount of heaven-earth spiritual qi was really used for his practice. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 850. Probe. Another point was that Jun Moxie was the first one to explore this cultivation technique, and he'd already finished forging a proper path. All Xue Yan had to do was to cultivate according to his instructions. There was no need to go through the wrong turns again, and it saved her a lot of work. In addition, Xian beasts cultivated faster than humans by nature. This series of coincidences resulted in her perverse speed of advancement. However, there were drawbacks as well. When Jun Moxie broke through in the past, each breakthrough was accompanied by large amounts of benefits provided by the Hongjun Pagoda. Whether it was techniques or treasures, all of them were things that could only be encountered, not sought for. Xue Yan obviously did not have the same advantages. Because although she was cultivating in the Hongjun Pagoda, she was not the true owner of it. So although she was practicing the same cultivation technique, she couldn't achieve the same effects as Jun Moxie. For example, the yin-yang escape art that Jun Moxie obtained from the first level and the flame of primal chaos and furnace of good fortune from the second floor, Xue Yan didn't get any of them. Jun Moxie furrowed his brows and thought for a moment and said, "I'll pass some chance over to you later. Remember them and see if you can cultivate them. If you can, it's naturally a great boon. If you can't, there's also no need to force the issue." Seeing how stern he was, Xue Yan nodded seriously. Days and nights are yin and yang. Heaven and earth are yin and yang. The biochemical cycles of beings are yin and yang. A person is also yin-yang from the time of its origin, and whether faced with good luck or bad, and whichever side the person decides to show, everything is yin and yang. Everything can be hidden, and everything can be investigated, because everything will always remain yin and yang. This was the verbal chants for the yin-yang escape art. And Jun Moxie was reciting them to her one word at a time. The yin-yang escape art could be said to be the most invincible and most mysterious ability in this world. It gave one the ability to fight across ranks. And as long as one was proficient in it, even if one only had a silver Xian level cultivation, even a saint emperor will not be able to hurt him or her. In the battles to come, not only would the danger grow higher and higher, the strength needed to contend against the enemy would also increase. Although Xue Yan's current strength was extraordinary, it was still far from sufficient against Saint Kings and Saint Emperor level experts. It was not even sufficient for self-preservation. Perhaps only by mastering this yin-yang escape art would Xue Yan be able to preserve her life in any situation. To Jun Moxie right now, the lives of his loved ones were more important than anything. Jun Moxie attempted to let Jun Wuyi learn this technique in the past as well. However, Jun Wuyi was completely unable to even gain an initial feel for it. From the looks of it, this technique could not be cultivated by just anyone. Or rather, only a person who cultivated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune could learn this mysterious art. Right now, Jun Moxie only had a try-and-see expectation. If it succeeded, Xue Yan would have a powerful and permanent life-saving card in the future. Xue Yan concentrated seriously and committed the chant to memory. Her clever and talented mind very quickly memorized everything perfectly. This is the essence of my unique secret technique, the yin-yang escape art. After cultivating it, you can hide your body in the void at ease. Whether it's an environment of metal, wood, water, or fire, you can still travel freely through it. Furthermore, not a shred of your aura will be leaked out. This can be said to be the #1 technique in this world. Jun Moxie said seriously. You must make good use of this time to practice. This is my greatest escape and life preservation technique. Although he'd said it in such a calm manner, Xue Yan was completely shocked. To be capable of hiding oneself within the void at will. She finally understood what Jun Moxie meant by shocking, magical movement technique that stunned the world was. To think that such a wondrous technique actually existed in this world. And he'd actually decided to pass this exclusive magical technique to her without any reservations. At this moment, her heart was filled with a sweet feeling, and she felt extremely happy. Not only because of the secret technique, but because of Jun Moxie's meticulous and painstaking love, magical techniques were never spread to others so easily. This was not an exception, even between husbands and wives. But Jun Moxie had actually done it. This was the equivalent of him telling Xue Yan, no matter when or whatever the circumstances, I will never suspect you. But saying was one thing. To actually prove it with action was far more weighty than just telling it to her. Moxie. You will be fine. And I will be fine too. Xue Yan's eyes turned red. Silly lass. If I don't teach it to you now, I will still teach it to our kids in the future. What kind of secret is this? Don't think too much. It's exhausting. Jun Moxie chuckled lightly. If you really feel uneasy about learning the secret technique, how about paying for it with a strip dance? If you dance for me, I will definitely feel extremely happy. That way, you will also feel easier. My idea is not bad, right? Scram. Xue Yan gave him a kick with annoyance. Why must this fellow always say such filthy things just when I'm feeling touched? The two of them had finally been reunited after so long. Jun Moxie would naturally want to be intimate with Xue Yan. Although Xue Yan looked unwilling on the surface, she actually didn't have that much resistance in her heart. However, both of them controlled their impulses and chose to continue waiting. There were no other reasons other than the fact that Green Hunter was also in the Hongjun Pagoda. Although she no longer had any awareness of the outside world, she had been injured because of Jun Moxie. Her injuries had even reached such a serious point. So how could Jun Moxie and Xue Yan not be moved? Although she never revealed anything before, the two of them were clear about the deeply buried feelings in her heart. If they behaved so intimately in her presence, they would undoubtedly feel guilt-stricken. Regardless of whether Green Hunter could see it or not, or if she could feel it, such a thing was still too cruel to her. Xue Yan continued staying inside the Hongjun Pagoda to comprehend the yin-yang escape art. Jun Moxie once again guided the primal chaos purple chi through Green Hunter's meridians once, stabilizing her condition before exiting. While waiting for Xue Yan to break through, quite a lot of time had already passed. If the three holy lands moved quickly enough, they might have even arrived at Chrysanthemum City. Jun Moxie still needed to properly consider his strategy for this fight. Even though he looked extremely confident when talking to Dongfang Wenqing, victory was always left to those who were well prepared. So as soon as he exited, young Master Jun used the yin-yang escape art to disappear into the depth of Chrysanthemum City. Because the instant he returned, he could distinctly feel that in just the short time of 1.5 days, the entire Chrysanthemum City had completely changed. On the surface, Chrysanthemum City was still the same Chrysanthemum City. But with just a quick sweep of spiritual sense, one would detect countless powerful presences. These powerful presence had formed into a giant net, constantly observing the actions of every single person in the city. No one was an exception, and no one could be an exception. Feeling the ever-constant, almost omnipotent spiritual sense lingering in the air, Jun Moxie could not help but cluck his tongue with surprise. It looked like the three holy lands truly brought out the large guns this time. For this battle, so many shocking experts had been sent out. Each of them were all peak-level experts, renowned throughout the world. After he carefully maneuvered around the encompassing spiritual sense net, Jun Moxie showed himself and quietly walked down the streets, slowly moving towards the Chen Manor. The closer he got, the more keenly he could sense the lingering spiritual sense growing stronger and more dense. Right now, the Chen Manor was like an impenetrable steel wall that couldn't be infiltrated. Jun Moxie laughed lowly in his heart. Looks like the three Holy Lands still chose the Chen family as their core this time. They were certain that everything would start from this place, beginning the conflict from both sides. Compared to the people gathered here this time, the Chen family's Chen Qingtian, whether in status or strength, was not considered an important character at all. Before this, he was only an inconsequential family head of a small family of the three Holy Lands. But now, he'd actually become the person whom the three Holy Lands face lay with. Jun Moxie's previous plan was to secretly spread news to the world that the three Holy Lands had sent all their experts out to prevent Chen Qingtian from being assassinated. Although most people would express disbelief as to the authenticity of this news, the three Holy Lands' reputation would still be completely dragged through the mud if Chen Qingtian ended up being killed. That way, they would have no choice but to provide him with heavy protection. However, Jun Moxie no longer intended to do that. Or rather, that move was just to probe how the three Holy Lands would react. What Jun Moxie was truly aiming for was to utterly destroy the three Holy Lands. It wasn't something that would stop at just having their reputations be destroyed. To young Master Jun, even if the three Holy Lands remained revered as the principal model in the eyes of the world after he'd killed them all, it wouldn't matter to him. All I want is your life. After all of you are dead, I'll be truly happy. Thus, whether the Chen family's head died, it was completely unimportant to him. As he sensed the formidable auras coming from the Chen family manor, Jun Moxie smiled coldly in his heart. He'd already thought of a comprehensive counter-strategy. Not hesitating any longer, Jun Moxie slowly turned around and followed the human crowd, returning the way he came. At this moment, young Master Jun looked no different from a regular passerby. His footsteps were heavy, and his eyes were dim. He seemed like a person without a shred of martial skills. Numerous strands of spiritual sense swept over him, continuing on with pause. Jun Moxie's expression remained unchanged as he lowered his head and hurried along. Suddenly, Jun Moxie's body shook heavily as he stopped. He'd felt an exceedingly shocking aura, the kind that was cold to the extreme. It was like it had abruptly sprung up from the depths of his heart, instantly permeating his entire body. It was incredibly fast, and in such a short instant, Jun Moxie already had an inexplicable feeling as if his entire body was about to freeze. It was like how a person walking alone on a starless night and suddenly came upon an unmarked coffin right in front of him. Even on the coldest peak of the snowy mountain, Jun Moxie hadn't felt this way. But now, he'd actually experienced such an intense cold. Jun Moxie could clearly remember that he'd just passed this street only a short moment ago. There weren't any anomalies just now, not even the slightest wisp of one. Only a short while had gone by when he'd walked there and back again. However, the feeling this street gave him was completely different. This was something that he only discovered because of his supernatural senses. That was a most intense feeling. There was definitely something strange here. This story will be continued to chapter 851. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.